I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Play a Crucial Role in Improving Your Patrons' Cognitive Health. My name is Angela, and I work at on the marketing team for Demco Software, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we start, I'd like to quickly highlight who Demco Software is. At Demco Software, we're committed to developing tools that make it easier for you to engage your community. From managing your events to running year-round reading programs, connecting your patrons to everything your library offers through a user-friendly mobile app, the Demco Discover platform is a suite of tools that help you solve the real challenges your library faces. We also offer a variety of free resources such as educational blog posts and webinars like the one you're attending today. You can view these resources by visiting demcosoftware.com. And now just a few logistics to cover before we get started. Due to the number of participants, your phone lines have been muted. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them in the questions box of the GoToWebinar. We'll answer as many as possible at the end of the presentation. The slides from today's webinar will be emailed to participants within a couple days. You can also download them immediately from the GoToWebinar control panel under Handouts. When you leave the webinar today, a short survey will appear. Please take a minute to answer the questions and provide feedback and ideas for future webinar topics. And now I'd like to welcome today's speaker, Jackie Flavin. Jackie is our Customer Intimacy Manager at Demco. In this role, she follows library trends and leads customer research initiatives to ensure Demco solutions are centered on ever-evolving needs of librarians. She's been a library super lover since her mom took her to a toddler story time, and she wishes her high school career counselor had told her she could be a librarian. Jackie is especially passionate about social mission of libraries and follows health and wellness trends closely. In her previous work at University of Chicago, she designed and implemented several community wellness programs for the university's graduate students. It's my pleasure to introduce Jackie and turn it over to her.
Thank you for the introduction, Angela. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're joining us today for this webinar. Before we dive in, I just want to share our goal today is really just to share some examples of innovative cognitive health programming happening at public libraries like yours. Our hope today is that this presentation is going to spark ideas for some impactful programs that you can actually implement at your library. So looking at the brief agenda here, we're going to start by looking at community health broadly, and then we're going to narrow down the scope to talk more specifically about cognitive health programs for adults. And I'm going to try to leave 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, which is my favorite part. So as we go through the presentation, send in your questions, and we'll get to them at the end. So to just sort of jump in here, let's talk about community health. Community health is a huge topic with a huge impact. You know this. I'm preaching to the choir. Did you know that health is actually the second most popular subject of online searches? Can you guess what the first most searched subject is? No, it's not what you're thinking. It's actually local community events, and some sources actually say that it's weather, but health really ranks up there. 80% of internet users, which is about 93 million Americans, have searched for a health-related topic online. That's according to a July 2017 Pew study. Looking for health or medical information is actually, one of the most popular activities online. It's surpassed only by email, which about 93% of users do, and researching for products and services before purchase. Sadly, less than a quarter of these health information seekers actually verify the date or the source of the information. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are pros at that. Community health is a big focus of ALA's really awesome Libraries Transform campaign. I'm sure these posters look familiar to you. I love them. They're so wonderful and colorful and really succinctly say the message. We all know libraries really play a critical role in the health of communities. Access to current and reliable health information is imperative to a community's well-being. And sadly, only 62% of communities in the U.S. In 62% of communities within the U.S., public libraries are the only provider of free public access to computers and the internet. Also want to mention that PLA is partnering with the National Network of Libraries of Medicine on a health information initiative to equip library staff with tools and resources so that you can have confidence in addressing user health information needs. So this is a big topic, and you know it, and you saw this webinar and you signed up because it's important to you. And so thinking about what we can talk about, when it comes to health programming, there are so many things you could do at your library There's so many aspects of health, and there's hundreds of programs you could do for each aspect of it. You could focus on heart health, financial health, mental health, nutritional health, sexual health. I just want to say currently Demco does not have any solutions focused on sexual health, but you never know. But you have to determine what your community needs and exactly where you can make the biggest impact. And so for this webinar, we're really going to focus on one important aspect of health, cognitive health, and we're going to narrow our audience to adults. So this is a really important area. I just want to share some facts with you. Each day, 9,900 Americans turn 65 years old, and this number is going to continue to rise to about 11,500 by 2029. Every 66 seconds, someone in the U.S. develops Alzheimer's. According to AARP, 93% of Americans aged 34 to 75 believe that it is very or extremely important to maintain a healthy brain, but very few know how to do so. And lastly, the brain determines the quality of every instant of our lives, but we struggle to know what to do about it. So it's a great place to focus today's webinar. So we're always in conversation with library thoughts and program leaders in cognitive health, and we want to share some of the best of what we've learned from them. So now I'm going to share some great examples of cognitive health programs from libraries that we work with. First example, ping pong at the library. This example comes from Queens Library in New York. We reached out to the library manager, Casper, for the full story on this program. So when you think ping pong, you probably think fun and exercise, which are great drivers of cognitive health. Aerobic activity that increases heart rate has a positive effect on brain function. For example, I'm sure you feel like this as well. I totally think best when I'm walking or jogging or just moving. Second point, ping pong offers very accessible aerobic activity that your library can offer, and it's just relatively easy to get into. Anyone can participate in ping pong. It requires quick thinking, hand-eye coordination, fine motor skills, all which stimulate different parts of the brain. And also, let's just add, it's super fun and engaging. It's just a very fun thing to add to your library. So we saw this article in public libraries online, and we had to talk to Casper. He was very generous and shared a lot of information with us. His libraries had a lot of success in bringing ping pong to the patrons. He remarked that it's an entry-level fitness program suitable for patrons of all ages. And I just want to add, it's sort of like a secret exercise. People probably wouldn't even say, I was just exercising doing ping pong, but in fact they are. Queens Library has been able to use ping pong as a differentiator for them, which is especially important. Casper mentioned when they visit their senators during legislative days, legislators know Casper's library as the ping pong library. And also, an interesting point, ping pong has sparked a lot of really interesting conversation about what a library should be. Some patrons are not fans of the disruption and have generally been reluctant to sort of evolve their perception of what libraries are. So it's created an opportunity for Casper to have conversations with these more traditional patrons about, why it's important for libraries to evolve and what it really means to survive and thrive as a library in 2018. Casper summarized some keys to success. First and foremost, make the table a visible fixture in the library. This helps build interest, gets people talking, gets that word of mouth excitement going. He also suggested getting a table that's on wheels so you can easily move it around and out of the way if you need to. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, like, where would I put a ping pong table and have it sort of out there all the time? You can totally get one that's on wheels and they fold up pretty easily. He also suggested to get the momentum going, schedule some events related to ping pong and promote them, everywhere you can. So even if people aren't in the library seeing the ping pong table, they'll probably get a notification about the event and get the word out that way. And lastly, don't be afraid to jump in yourself. This can be great team building for your staff. It really helps connect you with the patrons. It's just all around fun. Our second example comes from Pottsboro Library in Texas. We connected with Director of Library Service Diane after she gave a webinar on community gardening. Community gardening has really been growing in popularity. And actually, can you raise your virtual hand if you have a garden at your library? I'm just curious what we see here. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, okay, great. So I'm seeing hands from quite a number of you. So the benefits to cognitive health are really incredible. Gardening decreases stress, provides meditative benefits. Community gardeners find an enhanced sense of community connection. Gardening is a wonderful physical activity, and it results in fresh produce. So, I mean, it's just like, there's no downside, basically. Horticulture therapy in general is a well-accepted part of treatment for dementia patients, and it's been shown that plants and gardening at large can help patients of all ages with mental illness. So just really like an awesome, awesome thing. So looking at Pottsboro Area Library specifically here. So this is a really beautiful story. About 6 or 7 years ago, the Pottsboro Area Library was on the verge of closing. It was kind of a typical library, very traditional, run by volunteers, funded with donations. They stepped back and they challenged themselves to be more relevant to their community. So they turned their focus outwards and really listened to what the community needed and wanted. As that was happening, the city gifted them a large plot of land, about an acre or so, and they made it into a garden. And how it works is they have 100 beds in the garden. They have a garden manager that assigns beds to people. People can have up to 3 beds, and they have to apply to be a gardener. Diane mentioned that they really hired the right garden manager. He's got a whole network of people who are very connected and helpful. And Diane also said that they live in the yes. They started with a goal in mind, but they were very open to sort of following where the leads go, and that's a lot of what has led them to where they are today. And they've really been surprised by the variety of people that want to get involved. For example, I'd never heard of this, but they have someone whose specialty is earthen building, which is the practice of building with cob and bottle brick. It's quite a specialty, and this guy is pretty good at it. He built a number of really cool structures for the garden. Pottsboro should really be proud of the impact that they've made with the garden. People drive from 20 miles away to partake in the gardening because their town doesn't have anything like it. And not only is the gardening itself super beneficial, but they've been able to nourish local low-income families with fresh produce. This community in particular has limited transportation and limited access to fresh groceries. Many people were doing their grocery shopping at the dollar store before the garden, and now they're actually eating organic, fresh produce. And the best shining example, the best story from this garden. So Diane remarked that they had a young family who was moving from San Antonio, and the family couldn't decide which local towns to live in. The mom started looking online, and she chose Pottsboro because of the library's community garden. They made Pottsboro their forever home just because of the garden. So when Diane goes to city council with that story, she said it just really speaks to people, and she can literally show the impact that their library has on attracting new people to the community. Some keys to success. So a big one is partnering with local organizations. Pottsboro partnered with the state park to have monthly maker classes in the garden, and they also partnered with local scout troops for work days. They had help from Eagle Scouts building benches and whatnot. And she commented that just look out in your community and find partners with similar goals. Secondly, hosting events in the garden can be a really great way to get the enthusiasm going. Pottsboro has a monthly work day open to the public where people, not just the gardeners, but other people can come and get some garden-related education. They also host nature classes for kids and socials for the gardeners where they can talk about sustainable permaculture and build community. Diane also said, start small. You might have a flower bed in front of your library, and that's great. That's okay. Rock that flower bed, and embrace the scalability. To expand, maybe look for a grant. There's so many grants out there. Demco actually does have a grant database that can help you find one. But ask for donation, ask for tools, ask for advice, and do what's right for you. Leverage the resources you have. Every garden should look different because every library is different and every community is different. And also, lastly, share your story. Share the best practices that you can with other libraries. Our third example comes from Effingham Public Library in Illinois. So this concept of reminiscence therapy is really fascinating. Essentially, it's about using life histories, whether they be written, oral, or both, to improve psychological well-being. Evidence from other kinds of research and from experience suggests that working with life history can be really valuable to care workers, family members, and people with dementia themselves. A review of the research on this therapy, a review of research on group reminiscence for people with dementia has suggested that the main positive outcomes are increased levels of engagement, enjoyment, and communication. And also, really interestingly, recent research has emphasized the importance of the effects of this reminiscence work on caregivers, which is sort of it's not really the main focus of research, but when reminiscence work it can soften the negative attitudes and improve the quality of relationships between people with dementia and those who care for them. And that has a really significant implication for the quality of care. So a little more evidence, memory retrieval, as obviously sort of is really hard for people with Alzheimer's and dementia, and retrieval practice has been shown to really help learning and memory. And that's what these kits sort of, address. And looking at Effingham Public Library, they partnered with Effingham Area Alzheimer's Association, Effingham Area Alzheimer's Awareness Group, I believe, to create the Forget Me Not Resource Center, which connects dementia patients and their caregivers with education and tools that they need to navigate all the difficulties of dementia. Really, really cool example. I encourage you to take a look at the center and the toolkit and how it all came together. The reminiscence kits that they put together and that they have some other resources about on their site if you want to take a deeper look. These are themed toolkits designed to encourage memories. And so caregivers are encouraged to sort of put these items together, create a story for the items, ideally from the person's life, and then ask, open-ended questions about the items, like, what does this remind you of? What is this, does this smell remind you of anything? Have you used this item before? Those kinds of questions to sort of get them talking and remembering. The toolkits that Effingham has, they have themed toolkits around cooking, they have a handyman toolkit, a sewing toolkit, hunting, fishing toolkits, beauty toolkits, really a lot of really, really cool things. Some keys to success. So Joanna Schultz, the assistant director at Effingham, she shared some advice for other libraries that are considering circulating these toolkits. She said empathy is, is a big piece. So they learned really quickly that families impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia are really hesitant to share their stories. There's a lot of stigma around these diseases, and it leads to, sort of a secrecy about it sometimes. So the library staff had to demonstrate a lot of compassion around the subject, and they helped sort of do this by partnering with the Effingham Area Alzheimer's Group. Second point, education. So Joanna shared that the single most impactful strategy that they've used with the reminiscence kits is supplementing the kits with educational opportunities geared toward the same audience of family members, caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and dementia. So these educational opportunities take the form of a workshop where the library provides the space and brings in a speaker from another organization. A good example, one of their more popular sessions was on the topic of elder law, presented by a local lawyer. And these sessions have allowed the library to really position itself as a resource dedicated to empowering caregivers. And lastly, promotion. So driving awareness of the Forget Me Not Resource Center has been key to the success of the kits too. Joanna recommended that libraries considering programs like this reach out to their local media to try and get the word out in the places where Alzheimer's caretakers might be looking, like local newspapers. Also heard some libraries use local radio stations to promote similar programs. So we really love this case study because it's a really good example of a public-private partnership. And certainly I think that theme sort of runs through a lot of these, but really just a really great example. Our fourth cognitive program is brain training. So what exactly is brain training? When we talk about brain training, we're talking about a system of online exercises to help your adult patrons think faster, focus better, and remember more. And even more specifically, we're talking about Brain HQ, which is the only online system scientifically proven to improve cognitive function. It's proven to be beneficial by more than 100 independent peer-reviewed research papers and shown to bring substantial improvements in a ton of things. I mean, this list is, quite long there. Processing speed, memory, attention, everyday cognition, vision and hearing, physical brain change, health, and driving. I feel like I could use help in all of those areas. Processing speed. So many of the Brain HQ exercises are designed to increase processing speed, which is how quickly and accurately the brain can process information coming in from vision and hearing. To date, 20 scientific papers have shown faster processing after training with Brain HQ exercises. This includes one of the largest and most respected studies conducted on brain training in adults. Among other things, individual studies have shown an average increase in auditory processing speed, a doubling in visual processing speed, and a partial reversal of age-related neural slowing. Several scientific papers, 17 I believe, have measured memory performance in people before and after using Brain HQ exercises. And among other things, researchers have shown an average improvement of 10 years in memory, also generalization beyond trained tests, and also an increased activity in areas of the brain associated with memory. So an interesting example of Brain HQ serving of a library using Brain HQ to serve its patrons. Library Journal recently featured an article on Sterling Heights Public Library's success using Brain HQ in their programming for seniors. Sterling Heights is in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. The city itself is running a year-long initiative to enhance brain health. How cool is that? The whole city is like focused on programming for brain health for a whole year. So as part of that initiative, the public library partnered with the Senior Center to offer programs and events. Brain HQ is just one component of the broader Exercise Your Brain program. Library Director Tammy noted that exercising at gyms is much more popular now than it was 50 years ago, and mental fitness exercises could follow a similar trend among an aging population. She went on to say that brain fitness is the next step in that revolution, and just as you exercise your abs and quads, you can exercise your memory and attention. So some keys to success. For a broader, more comprehensive reach, include brain health tie-ins like nutritional health, physical health, financial health, stress management, all the things that also affect the brain. Secondly, be sure to promote brain training inside and outside the library as well, as in non-library publications like the city newspaper or radio. Partnering with local businesses helps support promotional efforts and also bolsters incentives. And lastly, marketing to those most interested, like seniors, is smart, but don't forget about all the others who could benefit. Just to recap, let's wrap up with just a list of the 4 awesome cognitive health programs we covered today. There they are. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. It really is my pleasure to share this information with you. I hope it sparked ideas for you to bring great programming back to your library. We do have a lot of time for questions here, so let's take a look at some of the questions we've received.
Okay, we do have some rolling in, and I just want to remind everyone, if you do have questions, please enter them into the questions box so we can see them and try to answer them here for you today. Let's see, the first one is, this has been a really great webinar, and I'd love for others at my library to be able to see it. Will be recorded.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it sure will. And all registrants and attendees will receive an email probably within the next couple days or so with a link to the recording. My library is deep in the throes of kicking off summer reading, which I think everyone is. Do you have any suggestions for incorporating one or more of these programming ideas into your summer reading program? Ooh, that's a really good question. Yeah, and I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm not sure if this person's library is using an online reading program tool, and I can't really speak to the capabilities of like all the online reading program tools. But I know that Wandy Reader, for example, allows libraries the ability to to like create challenges as part of their programs that incentivize readers beyond just like, minutes read of a book. So if you're using a program like that, like Wonder Reader, you could create a challenge maybe around participating in like one of the program ideas. For example, you could earn maybe 5 points or something for spending 30 minutes doing online brain training, or like 10 points for, beating a librarian in a game of ping pong or something like that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have another one that just came in. What does the garden at Pottsboro build using secondhand recycled materials?
Oh, that's a really good question. Actually, I could follow up with I'm going to follow up with the librarian there on that one, because I don't know a ton about that, but that's such a good question. So I'm going to follow up with the librarian there to get more information on that.
Okay, thanks. Our library has a partnership with a local nursing home, whereby we visit the nursing home monthly to offer in-person programs and activities to residents. Do you have any other suggestions for how we might offer the programs you talked about today, or other programming ideas in this capacity?
That is such a great question, and this is such a good example of why I love libraries. I mean, talk about getting outside the library walls and in your community. That's just really awesome to hear that you're doing that. Actually, so really funny timing. There was a great conversation about programming in nursing homes this morning in the Programming Librarian Facebook group. So I really think you could take some of the ideas we talked about today and apply them to a nursing home setting. You could, for example, do a small gardening area, or do reminiscence kits. You could do brain training there, but certainly maybe bring a laptop and have Brain HQ with you at the nursing home. There were some other ideas in the Facebook group as well, like doing like themed slideshows and having library volunteers like read to the nursing home residents. Also, doing like music activities, like music and rhythm stuff. There was also one, there was one that kind of reminded me of reminiscence therapy a little bit, where there was a librarian in the Dallas area, and she reads and has like, she has discussions of historical events with the residents, and she'll use that as an opportunity to ask questions like, like, where were you when President Kennedy was assassinated, and things like that, and that sort of helps them with that memory retrieval. So yeah, tons of things, I think.
We have another one come in. It seems like there's a common thread between all the libraries you feature today. Many of them partnered with external organizations to bring these programming ideas to life. Our library hasn't pursued community partnerships in the past. Do you have any advice for me as someone who's new to building those kinds of relationships?
Totally. I think this is such a big topic, and we could probably do like a whole webinar on this topic. And I know it comes up a lot at conferences too. It's often the theme of the different conference sessions. But strong partnerships are kind of how you can get stuff done, because you have such limited resources and time, and leveraging the community partnerships available to you are the key to, I think, making magic happen. And so I think my first piece of advice would be to make a list of all the organizations in your community that have similar values to you, or maybe like a similar focus area or audience, and identify the key leaders, and then sort of maybe start building relationships. Maybe it's a simple coffee date, maybe invite them to the library, just sort of start there. I think a lot of community leaders love the library, so I don't think that, I think that's going to be something in your favor. But yeah, I would say start with, people that have shared missions, and work from there.
Another one, our library has online brain training, but we're having a hard time promoting it to our patrons. Any advice?
That's a really good question. I would, if anyone knows the secret of getting patrons to adopt all of the programming, do share. But some of the best practices that we've heard have been cross-promoting with other programs. So one library we talked to in Louisiana promotes Brain HQ during toddler story time. So, parents come in with the toddlers are listening to the story. They'll slip like a little pamphlet in the room, or in something for the parents, and the parents are likely to have older parents themselves that might benefit from Green HQ. So it's a really smart way to target that group. We have also heard, as I mentioned earlier, we've heard of libraries promoting in local newspapers or on the radio. The more you can promote, I think, outside the library, the better. So yeah, awesome. I think we got to all the questions, and I just want to thank you all for attending the webinar today. And as I mentioned, we'll send out the recording in a couple days. And of course, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, you've got our contact information. We'd love to hear from you. Love to know what's going on in the libraries out there. So feel free to drop us a note.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jackie. Thanks everyone for attending. Have a great afternoon.